Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Fat Muscle Project podcast. It is question of the week time. Lisa, I can't think of two better people to answer this question than you and I. What do we have?
Our question of the week is, what are some tips for traveling while dieting? Or
So,
dieting while traveling, I guess.
yeah, just sticking to the plan. And this is something for our listeners. It's so crucial and key. I want to break this down for two different sets of people. There's people that are dieting for a bodybuilding competition, and then there's people like you and I who are not going to step on stage, but we're very serious about our physique, our health, sticking to the plan. We have goals, right? So this is for the very serious physique enthusiast, but it's also for the person that's trying very, very hard to diet, right? Not for stage, but they're on their plan. Maybe it's a person trying to drop 30 pounds and they've been training less than a year, and dieting is not something that they're like super used to. Like you and I have done this so much over the years. I can literally leave right now and I can go on the road and I can make this work with gas stations and going to a convenience store and going to the grocery store once I get where I'm going and not have anything with me, and I can make it work. But there's a lot of people out there that they're not used to that. And it's kind of a daunting thing. So I want to kind of preface this whole thing by saying we're going to have something in here for everyone. So let's address the very serious competitive people stepping on stage, right? I want to talk about how that needs to be very accurate. But then I want to talk about regular physique enhancement. So if you're stepping on stage, this is something to where you prep your food. And if you're traveling in a car somewhere, you're traveling for the weekend, you're staying in a hotel, you plan ahead. So you hit your macros, you take things like protein powder with you. You can pack things like tuna packets, or you can go to the store once you get there and you can get pre-cooked chicken or cans of chicken. If you have a place that has a kitchen in it, which I like to stay at, there's a lot of hotels that you can get that have full kitchens and fridges. If you're going to step on stage, it needs to be that serious, and you pay the extra money, and that's just what you do. You can also prep your meals in bulk at home, freeze them, and throw them in a cooler and do it that way. One of our fat muscle athletes, Jason Wells, I remember we all did a huge conference in Tampa, and I was driving down, and him and his wife flew down, but he was in prep. So what I do, I threw a cooler with all of his frozen meals for the week. And once he got to the Airbnb, I already had that there for him, right? But if he would have been driving, he would have done the same thing. So at that level, you really want to avoid eating out as much as possible, because you have like every little morsel counts. Like it's very hard to diet and step on stage. So with that being said, for people that compete that are listening, you already know that. Okay. If you're a new competitor, it needs to be that anal. So I don't really let my people eat out unless it's literally an emergency if they're stepping on stage. Now that we've got that out of the way, Lisa, unless there was something that you were
I'll
wanting
just
to
add
add
a
to that.
couple of things in there as well, even though I've never stepped on stage, but just from what I know too, I've heard of people using meal prep services and having that, so like not just delivery services, that's not what I'm talking about, but macro tracked meals, and that they pre-ordered them and had them sent to their hotel, so when they arrive there, that meal is there. And certainly if you can't find a hotel or Airbnb with a full kitchen, which is unlikely these days, at least make sure it has a microwave and it has a coffee maker. You can do so much stuff, oatmeal with whatever. You can even cook your chicken, whatever, in the microwave. Like it's all an option. The only other thing I would say is when you're flying somewhere, even if you're on a budget, try to avoid red-eye flights because sleep is so important. Recovery is so important. Don't skimp on the hotel fee for a night or whatever. See that you can, if possible, schedule your flights and your travel around it in the way that you're traveling throughout the day, even if it might seem like a miss in other ways.
Yeah. Let's talk about travel now for people that are just very serious trying to stick to their plan, and they have goals, right? But they're not stepping on stage. I travel, I would say most weekends. I would say 3 out of 4 weekends for the last, man, 15 years, either on the road going to competitors competitions, going out of town for business, going to my supplement manufacturer, going to set up wholesale accounts, like doing all these things, just going to conferences or just traveling to get away or to collab with other coaches. I strive off of travel. Like I get motivated. And with that comes the need to stick to a plan. And I'm going to tell you my staples, but this is also what I tell my clients. So I always start with protein, right? Protein's the base of a meal when we concoct our diets, right? Protein's the base of everything. I always take a jug of protein with me, a 2 pound tub of Fat Muscle Project protein, and I leave that in my car. So if you're going, we'll talk about flights in a minute, especially you can talk about this. But if you're traveling in a car, just take a tub of protein powder with you. If you're a female, 1 scoop is perfect. It's 25 grams of protein. If you're a guy, do a scoop and a half to 2 scoops, and you get, between 30 to 50 grams, depending on your goal. Protein powder is so simple. So that's one of the proteins I always have with me. You can take beef jerky with you. No, it's very high in salt. So if you're going to eat a lot of beef jerky for the next 2 or 3 days, realize you're going to be pretty puffy if you're not used to that. But beef jerky is a good, easy way to count protein. Tuna packets are very easy. Guys, you can get a tuna packet that's 42 grams of protein in a tuna packet. Ladies, I believe they're probably somewhere in the 20 range. Lisa, would you say, like per packet,
Something like
somewhere
that.
20
Yeah.
protein? Um, they're going to smell awful when you open them up in a car if you're riding with someone else. But you know what? If you got goals, you got goals. So those are the proteins that I really like to recommend. And then if you're eating carbs with a meal, it's easy to take packaged carbs with you. It doesn't have to be perfect. You talked about oatmeal earlier. I can't tell you how many times I've put oatmeal in a sandwich baggie, put 2 scoops of protein powder in it, and it's measured out, and I've got my 50 protein, 50 carbs, and it comes somewhere close to 10 fat. That's an easy protein carb meal. Or I'll take either peanut butter with me and I'll do a tablespoon or two of peanut butter, or I'll just take some nuts if I need fats. um Things like packaged granola bars are very easy. It doesn't have to be perfect. Matter of fact, it can even be a little quote unquote dirty, as far as like if you have to stop somewhere at a gas station and you need to get some Rice Krispie treats that are 50 carbs and like 5 fats, and you drink a shake with it, by all means, just hit your numbers. But it's one of those things when you're on the road, that's one thing. But then I also take a lunchbox and I have a whole thing of salmon cooked up, and I've got like 6 patties, salmon patties with me. When I drove to the Hybrid Health Summit in Florida, it was a 2 day trip, me and my son Gavin, and I posted all over social. I would open up my the back of my truck and I would get my meal out, and I had sweet potatoes already made up and I had salmon made up, and it was in a cooler, and I did what I had to do, and I never swayed. I was actually dieting through that. And I was gone for 9 days and I never missed a beat. So it's one of those things to where you just have to plan it out. Is there any, as far as traveling, like in a car or anything like that, before we get to the flights, is there anything else that you can think of, Lisa?
I what you said earlier about hitting the grocery store once you get there, that's one of my favorite strategies in any case, whether that's by car or whether that's by plane. I think that's a really good idea. I also think smoked fish often or smoked meat, not just jerky, but that doesn't necessarily always have to be chilled, or at least for like a day, maybe even two. Things like string cheese, for instance, also
That's a
super
good one.
handy. Of course, obviously, with all the things that we're listing, well, I was also going to say rice cakes for, easy carbs and so on can also be something. But obviously, with all the things we're listing, it's clear that fiber is pretty low. So sometimes when traveling, I do recommend to my clients to add in like a greens powder or something like that just to cover. They often have like digestive enzymes in them too. Um, but most certainly, what I do recommend is taking supplements with you as well, not just protein powder, but your other supplements. And to me, it's always a bit of a almost like a miracle, like why especially during an even more stressful time. Like traveling is stressful on our body. Even if we're traveling
Very.
for pleasure, for whatever, it is stressful. And then during that time, making the stress even worse by leaving out all the good things that we normally do, like taking your supplements, like hydrating, like getting in some movement. It's like, why do we add an extra load on top of that to our body while it would be so easy to take a little pillbox or whatever, pack it for the weekend or maybe even a week. It's absolutely fine. And let me tell you, I have traveled through so many airports with a lot of white powder. I have never once been stopped, even going in and out of Colombia multiple times. No one's ever thought that is drugs. So don't be concerned about that unless you really look like a drug dealer, maybe think about it. But otherwise, like I've had so many little Ziploc bags and whatever and just labeled and but perfectly, measured out. And I actually, most of the time, I travel with only carry-on. So it's not even in a big suitcase or whatever. If you measure that out for each day that you're gone, I think that that is really good. And to your point of the protein powder as well, I always think, even if people say, oh no, I normally don't need protein powder to hit my goal, take the bloody protein powder with you
Yeah.
because it's always better to have something and not to need it than to need it and not to have it. And yes, while protein bars are widely available in many Whole Food stores or whatever stores you might come across, they are often a lot more, they often bloat you more, they have higher fats. It's not as good of a protein source. And I would just say, yes, protein bars can also be helpful, but still take the freaking protein powder with you.
Yeah, I always tell people have an extra meal or two with
Yeah,
you, have an extra bar just as an emergency, or an extra sandwich baggie with a scoop or two of protein powder in it. Um, that way you can have it at a moment's notice because you never know if you're getting in a traffic jam or there's a detour
that's
or your
it.
flight's delayed. And speaking of, I do want to talk about convenience stores one more time. If you are somebody that has your food prepped and it's all in a cooler, there are other things like they make these little cups of jasmine rice that are about 50 carbs per cup. You literally, I walk into convenience stores. I've done this for 15, 20 years. No one's ever said anything to me. I walk in there, I go to the bathroom because I'm 70 freaking years old, so I got to pee all the time. I then throw my food in the microwave and I warm it up. They don't care. I typically buy something at the gas station. Like I don't, but you don't have to. Just go in and use the microwave, warm your food up and go sit out in your car and eat it. And a lot of times I've just eaten it cold too, not cold rice because that's like chewing gravel. But my point is, you can warm your food up, and a lot of people are like, "Hey, I don't. How am I going to warm my food up?" And you just do what you got to do. So I've eaten cold salmon and cold sweet potatoes so many times I can't even tell you because I eat it and I just keep going. I'm not trying to sit down and enjoy a meal. Let's talk about something that's in your wheelhouse. Let's talk about eating out because that is something I make work for my clients when they're traveling, unless they're stepping on stage. But I make it work. And here's what I like to do. Most these days, most places have a way to track. You can look the food up online. But even without that, I have a simple way of telling people, hey, go in and there's a couple different meals that you can get almost anywhere. You can get a chicken salad or a shrimp salad, and those are lower fat, higher protein options that are going to have fats with it. So I tell them, hey, get a serving of protein the size of your palm. And for females, that's going to work out to be, anywhere from 20 to 30 protein. Guys, the size of your palm is going to be anywhere from 30 to 50 protein. And you can just estimate, right? You're not going to be able to track it super accurately. And then have a salad and have 2 spoonfuls of any dressing that you want, which is going to be about 10 to 15 grams of fat. No one's going to gain fat from eating that type of meal, and you can order that almost anywhere. If you want to have carbs, well, then just have your same protein, but then pick a carbohydrate source the size of your fist. So maybe it's rice, and you just eyeball it on your plate, it's the size of your fist, or potato the size of your fist, and then add some steamed vegetables to that. That's most places, almost all places will do steamed vegetables, and that's a real simple 2 option meal to go have when you're traveling. Um, what do you like to do when you travel? Because when you travel, I actually, especially when I'm dieting, I get so hungry when I watch your stories, but you're always posting all this cool food. Give people an idea of what you like to do.
Yeah, I mean, what you said earlier about centering your meals around protein is probably the number one tip. So I usually say to my clients, or what I do myself also is I'll look for the things that are, seafood or fish or usually chicken breast. And sometimes if they have leaner cuts of beef, maybe like flank steak or so. So I look for that and then see what the meal usually comes with. And oftentimes I would just, ask this and that, but without the sauce. Or if it says, um, baked potato with sour cream, I might say, hey, no sour, hold the sour cream, no butter, no whatever, just as it is. And oftentimes the meat or fish portion, it'll actually say how many ounces it is on there too, so you don't even need to bother with the estimating the portion. But in general, what I like to practice and what I tell my clients to practice too is like next time you put something on your kitchen scale when you're at home, before you place it on there, just take a guess how much it is. And if you do that every single day, eventually you're going to know, like, okay, roughly this amount is going to be 6 ounces or this amount. So next, then when you do eat out, you have a much better ability to estimate. I will also say though that I would rather err on the side of caution when it comes to estimating for the fats, because even if something says grilled, or if it's, unless it
Yeah.
says steamed, or if it says, boiled or whatever, it's almost always going to have oil on there, even if you ask for the sauces on the side or you ask for minimal oil or so. So that's one point. With salads, I do agree with you, but I also caution people because sometimes they think, oh, I just had a salad, and they log, whatever lettuce and then the chicken and maybe some croutons, and they don't see that there was cheese on top. There were raisins, there were walnuts, like
Yeah.
whatever. And that adds up, and that adds an extra 400 calories. And you thought, oh, I had a salad, without paying attention to that. So sometimes I actually find what you suggested as a second option almost easier, because it's clearly visible what's in there. If you have your chicken breast, you have your sweet potato, and you have your steamed whatever broccoli, you can clearly see, hey, that's three ingredients, maybe the oil, full stop, hold the sauce, no thank you. So yeah, biggest point, center meals around lean protein, be mindful of fat sources of dressings. I do encourage my clients when they eat out to send me a picture of their meal so I can just like double check how they estimate it. And over time, they actually get better and better of like estimating the quantities and seeing the little almost hidden things, I guess.
Yeah, I know whenever I go out and travel and I come back, I don't really ever gain. I don't gain weight. I'm not gaining body fat. If I do gain, it's for some reason I've had to eat out very often for whatever the reason is. Or if my clients come back and they're up 2 pounds, they didn't gain a bunch of body fat. It's because when restaurants cook and you get food at convenience stores and you get simple stuff like lunch meat, for example, or pre-made chicken from the frozen section, like it is loaded with sodium because
Oh yeah.
these places want it to taste great. Like if you eat a chicken breast from a restaurant, it's going to have there's 1,500 milligrams of sodium, like no problem at all. Which, if a female is used to taking in 2 grams total a day, well, you just got that in just your chicken, right? So
Yeah.
it's not counting whatever else is there. And if you added salt to your veggies. So my point is, what I like to do is tell people keep your water high. Like if you're going to be eating out a lot, keep your water high because as sodium goes up, water needs to go up to help move the sodium. If your sodium goes up but your water doesn't go up, you're going to start to retain water. So it's just a simple trick. I don't think people need to get too neurotic and take like diuretics and all this stuff to help offset. Just drink more water. The more sodium you take in, drink more water, help flush you right out. And if you do come back heavy from your vacation and you just don't want to stress about it, but it's not fat gain, I tell my people for 2 days after they get back, increase your water an extra liter or two or a shaker or two, and extra water flushes any kind of bloat off of you from the sodium. So you can get right back down to a baseline. I do it with clients all the time, but I make sure I explain to them, hey, it's not fat gain. Don't freak out. You did a really good job. It was all the extra sodium that they just didn't think of.
And then often paired that with airplane travel, because I don't know
Yes.
if there's any science behind that, but I literally think that you just retain more water by being up in the air and air pressure and whatever. So I literally say the exact same thing in any case to people that are flying, especially during long haul flights. Like that extra liter of water is going to make a big difference.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen flights definitely have people puffy. Sometimes flights are stressful, so then you have that thrown in there. But yeah, increasing water is magical. Is there anything else that you can think of that we left out? I know you and I do this so much. I don't want us to gloss over any cool little nugget or tip that we might throw out there, but I
No,
think,
I think that was really the main things. Just I guess the reminder because that a lot of people might think through the airport security you can't take anything through
oh,
that. It really is just liquids. You can take anything that's solid. So you can take your chicken, rice, and whatever. You can't take your like if you prepare your oats at home with water or milk, you cannot take that. You cannot take yogurt or so. But you can take your, like you said, your pre-measured oats and your protein, and then you just add water later on or boiled eggs is another great one that I do like. Of course, you get the fats with that too, but that's absolutely fine. But yeah, you can take food through security, no problem.
yeah, peanut butter is another one that you can't take that people don't realize because it's not a
Liquid.
solid, right?
Yeah.
So I remember being in Tampa one time. I went to, I don't know. It was like when cookie butter first came out, like, and I was like 2013. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to buy some of this and take it back home because we don't have it back home. And they made me throw it away. I was just devastated because it was peanut butter, right? Like it's more than whatever 2 ounces. But here's the other thing. I've actually had a tub of protein confiscated here in the United States because I took the whole tub with me.
Oh,
So
gotcha.
what they told me at the time was they said, hey, put this in sandwich baggies
Mm.
and then take a bunch of sandwich baggies. And I've never had a problem ever when it's in a sandwich baggie. But for some reason, sometimes if they don't like the tub and they won't tell you why, they'll make you throw a whole tub of protein away, opened or mine was sealed and everything. So just put them in sandwich baggies and take those with you, and you are set and good to go. But I love this topic. If you can think of anything that we didn't cover here, feel free to add that in the comments. If you're watching on YouTube, if you need to get a hold of us, all of our contact information is there. If you want to send us any kind of feedback, questions for future question of the week, any topics or guests that you want to hear on the show, we love doing this. Just reach out to us. Glad to help in any way possible. So I hope you all have a great rest of your day. From Lisa and myself, we're out of here. See you guys.
Bye.